Welcome back, everybody, to Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Today is Saturday, February 27th, second to last day of February. We're heading strong into March, which means spring practice is coming. We'll be talking about that later on in the episode, talking about some of the quarterbacks, the quarterback competition that's going to get ready to happen, and freshmen. And is the whole team, are they in, or is that starting this week? I know the freshmen are now in, but
I think the whole team is in because I saw they had a photo up there yesterday. I'm pretty sure that's the whole team. I don't think that's just freshmen. Seemed like a big turnout for just freshmen.
Yeah. So,
they are, because I know like the freshmen were on their own, but I saw some of the upperclassmen had posted stuff about conditioning and.
Yeah, I know they usually are like the first couple days are usually freshmen only, and then they move the full team in. And then we'll start off the show here talking about a rough week for the basketball team this week as they went 0-2 since our last episode. They had
State up north got them.
Yeah, State up north got them. I watched pretty much the whole Michigan game. I saw I went to bed after the first half of the Michigan State game. I mean, I thought that they looked pretty good in the first half.
I didn't watch it.
So
I was going to watch it the next day because I saw they were leading when I went to bed, and then I saw they lost, and I read some of the comments, and I didn't watch it. So I didn't do my due diligence this week.
Yeah. So that's going to be the plan for this week's show. But, how you doing this week?
Good. Obviously caught up on WandaVision last night. So another great episode. Everyone check it out. This, of course, is a spoiler-free podcast, so we won't be saying anything. But to the Marvel fans out there that haven't seen it yet or have heard mixed reviews from friends, don't listen to any of that nonsense. It's a great show. Give it a try. You'll really like it. I also started replaying Legend of Zelda, the Ocarina of Time. So I went back in time a couple decades this week.
Yeah.
I only got past the first level one so far. Busy life.
Yeah. So, it's not much more different for me. I've been just watching TV, a lot of working.
And if you guys can hear it, I once again got sick. It's kind of like passing around person to person in my house.
So, and then of course, the good thing, the good thing and bad thing. So this week, I noticed, we started up here. I mean, for a lot of the state, a lot of the country, there's been a lot of snow. And so I was very happy to see the snow melting, being like, even though, you're going to get another round or two coming in March, but that,
see, that's why I don't really care when it gets warm this time of year. Like, I mean, I love warm weather, but like you said, you're going to get another round. I have 3 dogs, it's just soggy dog crap out in my yard. They bring mud in just let the ground be frozen until let me deal with this for 1 week.
Yeah.
And then everything should be fine. But I'm going to have 2 or 3 more rounds of this before the winter is actually done.
Yeah. That's what I was getting ready to talk about. So, happy the snow's melting. And then you realize that, of course you have 3 dogs, and 2 of them are big dogs. We have 3 dogs, and one of them's a big dog, and then you look outside and you realize the minefields that are waiting for you. So that's what my afternoon after we record this is going to be spent doing today.
Same here, man.
Cleaning up the yard some. So there's room out there for him to.
I know. That's I look out there. I'm like, there's no room for these dogs to do any more out there. Should have got it when it was frozen on top of the snow.
Yeah. All right. So basketball. So last Sunday, the big game, they played Michigan. They lost, was 92-87 was the final score. It was a phenomenal game. And
Good game.
I mean, when you watch that, it's like, wow, these 2 teams could play each other the final weekend of the year in Final Four. And as the game went on, though, you saw where some of Ohio State's deficiencies are. Michigan dominated them in the front court, and you just they couldn't get in.
They didn't guard the perimeter either.
Yeah, they couldn't get into the lane, and because Michigan's front court just kept them out, and Michigan really stepped up their defense in the second half. And so there was a lot of back and forth throughout the game. And then it just finally, within the last probably 6-7 minutes, Michigan just started easing in front, and then they just never gave it back up. And it was close, and then there was the errant pass, and then all the momentum was on Michigan's side, and that was that. And so, I mean, it was a tough loss, but I think it showed Ohio State a lot of things. And I mean, this is where, I mean, I do think we've talked in previous episodes. I do like their balance. They appear to be a very complete team on all levels, but sometimes a bigger team comes around, and you got to learn how to play those bigger teams, and that's, you get caught with that into the tournament. It could be a quick out or an out later in the tournament, whatever. It just know.
Well, and I don't think you and I mean, and I'm gonna just a quick question for you before we really dig deep into analyzing this a little bit more. I mean, it's no secret. You and I say, when it comes to like college basketball knowledge versus college football knowledge, like novices, like we're not really like me, especially, I'm not really that well versed in college basketball. I would say I probably understand NBA more than I understand college basketball. With that being said, in the Big Ten, and I think maybe you could say it in all places in college basketball, but in the Big Ten, is there still room for that dominant big man down low that maybe not even necessarily runs the floor that well, but someone that can still take over, down low when you need them in the game? Because like we had mentioned before, when it comes tournament time, it's one and done.
Yeah. I think there is. I think there is probably even more in college than there is, because I mean, there's a lot of things in the pros. I mean, they're the pros, so there's a lot of things that little guys can do in the pros, or mid-sized guys do in the pros, that do negate,
right,
some of the things that, I mean, the big man is just kind of a lost thing in the pros. Now in college, you get much more streakier games from outside shooters in college than you do in the pros. I mean, the top shooters in the pros are the top shooters in the pros for a reason.
Right.
And, I mean, yeah, they'll have streaky nights, but usually it's a night at a time. I mean, you sometimes in college, you can get your 3-point shooter could be off for 3 games in a row, or, it's just, just the time period he's in.
Now in basketball, it's not like you don't have your shooter now, like your entire team can shoot.
Yeah.
Like that's,
I think there is a spot still for big guys, and it's just and actually there's a dominant spot for him if you can get somebody that, in my opinion, that really keeps people out of the lane, frightens them, to say the word, and that they're scared to come down. That could be a benefit. Now you got to plug it with other things, like you still have to have shooters, and your shooters have to be on. I mean, we talked about Greg Oden in the past. I mean, against Florida, I mean, if our shooters would have done anything in that tournament that they did up to that game, Ohio State easily beats Florida in that championship game, because Oden was so dominant.
He held his own, and he was taking on 3 defenders while doing it.
Yeah, so I mean, he dominated Florida's front court, and that was just one guy. And then your shooters would, every game up to that point,
were lights out,
and then they just could not keep up with that. So so. Again, the goal is to be as balanced as possible. I've seen Ohio State teams too that they've had no big man, it seems like, or maybe a 6'8", their tallest guy.
You see that a lot.
And then they get into the tournament against, I mean, I remember, was it Sullinger's year? And don't get me wrong, I love him. That when Kentucky and Kentucky's front court was very he couldn't do anything.
That one guy, and the one guy wasn't even that big either. He's just maybe a little bit bigger than Sullinger. And yeah, it was just like, and weren't we the number 1 overall seed?
I think so.
I think we were that year too. And it was like, we got the hardest seeding as the number 1 overall. The one area that we were going to struggle with was, a good front court. And we match up with Kentucky. And I mean, what would that have been? The 3rd round? 2nd round?
Yeah, it was
3rd.
Yeah, I think it was the 3rd. I thought it was the second weekend. I thought it was Sweet 16. And then I remember the one year we played Kansas in the tournament. It was the same thing. It was just that
the Final Four year.
Yeah, that they just, they just dominated us in the front court. And,
and that was another game that went down to the wire, but it's just difference was they had that big that we couldn't match up against.
Yeah. So, yeah, I still think there's a spot for maybe there's not the Greg Oden guys anymore that maybe there used to be. I mean, obviously we're well past the years of Patrick Ewing and those type of players in college, but there's still spots for lanky, Kevin Durant players that can do a lot of different things, but
Kevin Durant could do everything.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking, but I'm thinking of his body size more than just him.
So maybe not like big centers, maybe not so much that, but guys that I mean,
remember you
shoot second.
I mean, you remember UConn's one year when they had, Okafor was the center, and Okafor was a big dude, but then they had
Villanueva and
Boone. That was their front court. They were more lankier guys. They were long, and it was just when the three of them were on the court together. I mean, you had no chance of getting into the down in the lane against them, and that's why they were so dominant that year. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking, that's a lot where the bigs have went in college basketball is those things. And, I think probably it would be beneficial to Ohio State to try to find somebody like that in recruiting and, just somebody that gets their arms up and just hard to shoot around.
Yeah. I mean, that was just at the end of that game, that was just the guy. There was no defense for Michigan in the middle. You couldn't penetrate Michigan in the middle. You couldn't stop them on the perimeter. So, I mean, I think there's two different ways you can really look at that game. If Michigan doesn't shoot as well as they do in the first half, how far of a hole are they in going into halftime? Because, I mean, they were on fire.
Oh, yeah,
shooting.
Definitely.
So, but then they don't shoot anywhere near that well in the second half, and they beat us. So, I mean, like, if you average it out, does Ohio State even have a chance to win? I don't know. Because worst case, Michigan could have shot just as well as they did in the first half as in the second half, and they could have just killed us. Like,
yeah, that's true too.
You know what I'm saying? It's like we weren't as competitive as what we needed to be in the second half. There's definitely much more deficiencies on Ohio State's side than Michigan side. Like, that was a really good basketball team we played.
Oh, definitely. And, we joking around them saying they're a basketball school. No, I mean, that's a team that could win the national title.
They could win the national title. They looked really good. And not that Ohio State did not look really good for most of that game. They did. It was a great game, but that was a better team.
Yeah.
They were.
And Dickinson, he just dominated. And like I said, 7-1, 22 points. He was just the difference maker coming down the stretch.
He was, yeah.
And that's just killed Ohio State. They just couldn't get in on him. And there was they were getting offensive rebounds. They missed there was one where they missed 3 threes in a row, and it's like, get the ball, and they got the offensive rebound every time in that second half. And it was, so it was just, I think it was a needed loss for Ohio State to see kind of where they're at. Now, the other loss of the week is the loss that they didn't need.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of back and forth. It sounds like there was a lot of bad calls in the game.
Or no calls.
No calls and
bad calls.
And that just sucks. Especially in a year. It's not like, we've never lost to Michigan State before, but in a year where Michigan State is down and, that would have been a good win for them. And now it does put the 1 seed now possibly in jeopardy. And that's what we talked about. You'd like to go 3-1 down that last 4 stretch to really solidify the 1 seed. 2-2 can still do it, but you got Iowa and Illinois.
There's a legitimate shot. It could be 0-4.
Yeah. You got 2 good teams, even though Iowa, they got their butts kicked the other night by Michigan. So, maybe they're not as good as we even think.
Well,
so
what they do have that's really good is they have a good center.
And exactly. And so that will be interesting how these next 2 games go, because, there's, 2-2, if they can beat Iowa and Illinois, they probably still have the 1 seed.
If you can go through the tournament, I think if you can get to the final game in the Big Ten tournament, you got a 1 seed locked up.
Yeah. But if they go 0-4 here, and, they might have to win the Big Ten tournament to, and I don't even know if that
might be a 2 seed if you go 0-4 down the stretch.
So, it's interesting. We know all the games are going to be in Indianapolis or Indiana. So it's like, I don't know how much of a difference a 2 and a 1 seed is going to really matter in this tournament.
When you're not traveling, I don't know.
And, they might end up being the best 2 seeds, so they might be in the worst 1 seeds bracket to begin with. Yeah. So, again, I'm really interested. Like we were talking about a couple weeks ago, I'm really interested to see how, because Duke's now looking kind of good, some of these teams that are,
UNC is not.
Yeah, but I'm wondering where some of the perennial powers that are going to.
That's kind of what's scary. It's like, where are these guys that have had good recruiting classes where are they going to end up in this
because
tournament?
they could end up on a run. And I mean, you could see a Duke at a 6 seed or whatever go win a national title. And like,
Well, what are they at? If you're a 6 seed, what are you playing in the first round?
you're playing the
116.
11th.
Okay, so yeah, I mean that could be a favorable draw for them.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, a lot of interesting things on that. Again, the Michigan State. I mean, I watched a lot of the first half, and the Buckeyes I thought looked pretty good in the first half. I mean, to me, it's a typical first half. There's so much of the early in the games is just, to me, when you watch basketball, it's just like a lot of times the first 10, 15 minutes is, really teams filling each other out.
Sure.
And then you start actually seeing kind of good basketball as the second part of the first half goes on.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, that's what the first half was. I thought they looked good. I didn't think they were going to lose. And I'm like, well, I figured, though when I went to bed, I'm just like, they'll win this game. It's just, they're the better team. But sounds like the second half was not their friend.
Yeah, not their game. Yeah. Just real quick to go back on that whole, perennial teams that can make a run depending on, where they're seated. Remember when UConn played Kentucky? Like, I mean, I don't know even how long ago that was now at this point, maybe 6 years ago, something like that. And they were weren't they pretty lowly seated, both of them?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's like the exact scenario we're talking about.
Yeah.
Neither one of them were highly rated, or like high seeds going into that game. But that's how it all played out.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm really, because, I do brackets and stuff. I mean, again, my brackets is more, I'm not pulling up information like some people, just like the people that take it real super serious, that actually do watch a lot of college basketball and just are, going through all the stat lines and, this team doesn't do well against front court. So I'm taking that team, and this team can't defend the three. So I'm taking that team.
So you're not in it for the money. You're just in it to fill out. I'm in it for
the fun of it. And so, I mean, and I've had good years. I've had bad years. I've had years where I've won almost every first round game and years where I've
lost. But then you lost every second round game.
Yeah,
I've had that. Yeah.
So it's like, you get some wacky years in there, and they've it's I mean, I do it for fun, but I am going to be interested to see where some of these when you think about the Dukes and the Kansases and Kentuckys and where they're going to really fall out in this tournament.
Yeah.
And and possibly who their games are, and possible second round games and third round games, because in Sweet 16s and Elite 8s, because it's like, could one of those teams go to the Final Four and win the national title?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I hate to say it, and I mean, I'm not going to pick them. Like I said, I'm not in it for the money, so I'm not going to pick them to win the national title because it's against my protocol. But the team I saw last Sunday is a team that could win a national title. That I think that they do have all the pieces to win one. I don't want to see it. Because you would think that then you really get we're a basketball school and we're great, and like nobody cares. And
hey, they make it and lose. They would have lost the same amount of basketball national titles as Ohio State's lost football national titles within the same time frame. So
yeah, so
pretty cool.
Yeah. So all right, so yeah, basketball. This week will be tomorrow's game will be interesting, and we'll probably. I don't know what time the Illinois game will be next Saturday. So, I mean, I don't know when next weekend show will be. We might be before the game. We might be after the game. I mean, we don't know how that stuff always falls out.
Right.
But we'll definitely, for next week, we'll definitely have seen the Iowa game. Tomorrow being a Sunday, it'll be easier. It's easier for me to watch. So,
right.
So I'll watch it and, see how they do. Like I said, I would like to see them go 2-0 down the stretch, because 2-2, I thought 2-2, 3-1 were possible. It's just, I always was figuring Michigan State was going to be one of those W's. So
I know. I thought so too.
All right. So spring practice started this week, getting ready. Is it officially started, or are we officially getting, or this is just
I think these are just like
the pre-spring,
like winter workout, pre-spring type deal going on right now. Some mat drills, mats came out. But I don't think spring practice, like practice number 1, I don't think starts till next week.
Okay. But yeah, so the team's back to work. We saw that there was a lot of on social media the jokes about how good the freshmen are going to be sleeping. I think that was Pantone or one of them said it's like I think it was the official account, the Buckeyes account, and they're like freshmen are going to be sleeping good tonight, and
they got introduced to the match.
Yeah, so that got shared a lot. No, so we've kind of teased this for a couple weeks, so we're going to get into it now since we've talked about really
time
where the quarterbacks. I mean, this is going to be an interesting spring because in a normal year, so you bring in two quarterbacks, you bring in Stroud, you bring in Miller. They both played a game. We're in pretty much a game. Stroud was in a couple. I think Miller was just in one. They both scored, I believe, a rushing touchdown.
I can't remember if Miller got in on his. I think he did because I remember Nebraska fans being really upset that Ohio State scored a late touchdown. And I was kind of going back and forth with them. Like, that's our third string quarterback that I don't think we knew that he could run up until this point.
Yeah.
Like, you got to stop that guy. Like, that's not Ohio State's fault.
Yeah.
I think he scored from like 20 yards out or something.
Yeah.
Of course, Stroud's against Michigan State, I think his was like 40, 50 yards out.
Yeah. So, but in a normal year, so you bring in two quarterbacks and you think about it, you have a 12-game year, you got Justin Fields. You think about the previous year. How many times did Gunner and Chugs get into the game? Because, I mean, we blew out how many teams?
Right.
And, so you're thinking about it in a normal season that you had a normal spring practice leading into said season. I mean, and they both came in early, Miller and Stroud. So they would have got a lot of work in the spring. You figure that they both would have got a lot of playing time throughout the year because, I mean, you would have blown out how many schools throughout the season. Yes. I mean, and that's just a typical thing. I mean, Ohio State, there's always 5-6 guaranteed blowouts on the schedule because two of your three non-conference games are usually,
right.
I mean, they are what they are. And, some years you get, because it's just an weird year scheduling for Ohio State, you get 3 cupcakes early in the year. I mean, last year where they would have played Oregon. So, you would assume that maybe you're not getting a guy in there, but in a normal season with a lot of normal practicing, there's not close games and you're not worrying about, I got to give Justin Fields every freaking rep that he can get. Cause we got to keep playing and, we got to make sure he's ready to go for a possible championship run. So they would have got a lot of work last year. They would have had a full summer. They would have had a full spring, full summer, and how many games they would have got into. Right. They would have been so far ahead of McCord, and McCord is really good coming in. The difference is they didn't get any of that stuff. So, and I've seen a lot of people in the Ohio State media, there's a lot of people assuming that this is Stroud's job to lose. Yeah. And I'm like, and I think CJ Stroud could be phenomenal. I mean, I like what I see from him. I liked what I saw from Kyle Miller last year. It's just, or not Jack Miller, Kyle McCord, right? Yeah. Which I'm going to get messed up a lot. So, but they are going to be, you would think that those two would have been so far ahead. They're not that far ahead of McCord. And I just say that Stroud's got this job. It's his job to lose. I think it's kind of it's not true that, I think all three of these guys are going to get real looks come this spring because they are not that far in front of him. So, I mean, McCord's basically coming in almost as an equal to them because it just, they didn't get the chance to really separate themselves last year.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what I saw in film, and we're talking from, high school too. So obviously things can change working out with, quarterback coaches, personal trainers, working out with Ryan Day, of course, for the guys that were already at Ohio State. Looking at the film, though, I mean, they are all super talented quarterbacks. Like these guys, gone are the days, that you got Braxton Miller or Terrell Pryor coming in that you're like, oh, wow, that's a game changer on film. You're looking at guys that they can win this game with their arm. And I mean, it's just really difficult to say at this point with the little information we have. So I will say, you got to think that Stroud or Miller, they've probably have built up more of a, relationship, more of a rapport with your receivers that you have coming back. So they are probably more comfortable with those two. It seemed like Stroud was the first off the bench, but that could have been a lot of different situations to go along with that. That could have just been, he plays more similarly to Justin Fields, and that's where we're comfortable going right now because that doesn't take our offense out of any sort of rhythm. But, rebuild from the ground up, Jack Miller might be the best fit for what Ryan Day is looking for. It's really difficult to say who's going to win or not. I would say from an arm talent standpoint, and just looking at the film, I think McCord looks the best out of all. But most of what I've seen from his film is him throwing touchdown passes to people. I've seen a lot more mobility in Miller and Stroud's film.
Yeah.
Which, of course, from your and my experience watching Ohio State over the last 25 years, that's been some of our better successes come with mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah, you think about, there was.
Yes, I'm going to stick with that. Yes.
There's definitely been a point. There was, when we moved into more of the, when Trussell kind of made his switch, when you think about some of the earlier quarterbacks he had, the team just moved better as his years went on. And then obviously in Meyer, we're running quarterbacks is a huge portion of his offense. Even if when you don't have a running quarterback, he still expects you to run some. And, I think that was a lot of his frustrations with Dwayne was because, Dwayne
wasn't built like that.
Wasn't built like that, but wasn't really willing to that. Like where Cardell, and even in his 3 games, and I know it's a small sample size, he was more willing, I think, to, if there wasn't something
Cardell's from Cleveland, Ohio.
When there was something not open,
he does not care to run somebody over.
Cardell would at least take off with the ball. If he was a battering ram. He knew that. Dwayne was a big guy too. Dwayne could have ran similar to that. He's not Cardell, but
right.
But,
I get what you're saying.
But that was just not in Dwayne's character. Dwayne never had to do that really in high school. He didn't. That was just not him. And so. I think that was a lot was wrong with the 18 offense at different times because there was just a disconnect there. I think if Day had probably a little bit more control than maybe because Meyer's stubborn and Urban, he definitely this my offense.
Yeah.
Even though he did let Ryan do a lot more than maybe he'd let other he had comfortability with him, just like in 14 he had a comfortability with Herman, so he let Herman experiment with a couple of things. The
line could have blocked RPOs though.
No, they couldn't, and Dwayne didn't. That wasn't Dwayne's game though. Too.
For as many issues as they had in 18, they could not block the run.
Yeah, exactly. So there's just, I think that, but you're right that mobility has been, when you think about, at least from the mid 2000s forward. You've had mobile quarterbacks pretty much almost every year, within a very few exceptions.
But if you read up on him, people say McCord's no slouch of an athlete.
I think just even though these are maybe more pro style instead of dual action quarterbacks, they run spreads, and spreads are, you got to have some mobility as a quarterback to run the spread because there's, especially when you're doing 4 or 5 wide receivers, there's not a lot of blockers there. You got to take off when you have to take off. A lot of these spread offenses, even more pass friendly spread offenses. There are elements of the run game for the quarterback in there. Now there's different degrees of it. These aren't, you think about some of the spreads that are like more of them when you think of Urban Meyer spreads that, the quarterback's running the ball a lot more than he's throwing, possibly even throwing the ball in the game. We saw that different times when Braxton Miller and JT, where they actually had more rushing attempts than sometimes passing attempts in different games.
Sure.
But so that's what I think. I do think probably what you were saying, that I think Stroud and Miller is probably they also, the coaches know him. They've known him a year longer, so
they have been working out more. That's true.
That's true. Now, but again, it's not as much as in a normal situation.
It's all fractured too, because it was all. As far as what you and I, what we've read, what we've known, is this whole start and stop stuff. This started long before, actual fall football. That it was going on the entire time. That everything was fractured last year.
Yeah, exactly. I think. So, if I would say that going into the spring, my guess is Stroud is just a little bit in front of Miller, who's a little bit in front of McCord.
Yeah.
That's my guess. But I don't think some of the people I read that, Stroud's job to lose, I don't agree with that. I just think, I don't even know if anybody's going to be I don't think we're gonna have a pick of who the quarterback is until fall.
No,
and
I don't.
And
I think the last week of August, you're going to learn who your starting quarterback is.
And he might have a quick hook on him. And there might see games where Miller or McCord or Stroud, whoever's not the starter but is the considered backup, might get some early snaps in a game. Everybody knows how. I mean, I'm not a big fan of that necessarily. I guess you kind of pick and choose your poison on that. I don't want to see in Oregon. I want to see a legitimate who the starter is.
I agree, yeah.
If they want to do some experiments, I know Tulsa, and who's the other non-conference game? I can't remember. I think Tulsa's one of them, but I think it's one of the MACs.
Akron.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to look it up this minute, but it's one of the. Believe it's one of the MAC schools. If they want to do maybe do a little duel in that game just to see, I understand that. But for Oregon, a team that's, could, on a good day beat you. I think Ohio State has some more talent than them. Ohio State's going to be favored in that game, but
you can't risk getting yourself out of a rhythm.
You can't. I mean, I think Oregon's good enough that if things start going bad because you can't get into a rhythm, things could snowball against you and you could lose a game over that. So that's not they need to have somebody picked for that. And just, this is a wild year. You never think you have. I mean, most teams don't bring in two high top quarterbacks in the same class. I mean, and then, when you Tressel brought in Zwick and, Troy was, I think Tressel had some other thoughts about, maybe Troy could be turned into something later.
Yeah.
Or maybe he'd just be a good backup and we have a legitimate backup.
I don't think anybody on that signing day, would have said in 2005, 2006, Troy Smith is my quarterback over Justin Zwick.
I mean, so what that is, but this is not the situation where you have a possible 5-star and a 3-star. I mean, these are both high 4 stars, 5-star range right here.
Right.
And so, these are both legitimate kids. And then you bring in another legitimate kid. And so, these kids have all these accolades coming in. They're not used to this.
Right.
So, I'm wondering if it'll be interesting between Stroud and Miller, if one of them doesn't feel like if they're at where they should be come the end of spring, we could lose one of them. I mean, I'm not,
I hope not this early, but yeah, it's very possible.
I mean, I'm
especially,
thinking,
if who you got behind McCord coming in the year after that.
I mean, that's the thing is you got to really start things are going to start piling up on you. And, transfer portals, everybody knows how crazy the transfer portal is getting right now. And, with quarterbacks, that's the one, there's only one of them.
Right.
You can have up to 5 wide receivers on the field at the time. You can have 3 running backs on the field at the time. So, there's play 4 tight end sets. There's times you can get every other skill position on offense. You can get multiples of them in on the field. And you can't do that at the quarterback level.
And that's, also, you could say, okay, well, when we're blowing so-and-so out, I'm going to come in and I can shine. But you could have a situation like last year where you just never had everything going. So Ryan Day did not pull Justin Fields as early as he should have, or you got in the second half and things didn't run as smoothly. So even though you're up 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, he's not pulling a starter because he wants to see, some just the offense running better.
Yeah. And and then if you do get in, you could be in a situations where, it's just, hey, we're just handing the ball off right now. And, I might not let you throw the ball. Maybe you get some runs, but, the focus now is to get home, get out of this game and get out healthy.
Neither one of them threw a pass.
Yeah. So, there's just a lot of things. And now you're going to have
Kyle McCord has more game time passes. Although it's against high school competition, he has a lot more game time throws in the last year than the other 2 do.
Yeah. And, I'm interested to see how he comes into the spring because I don't think he's going to be intimidated anything.
He's not coming in to be a backup. He was the high school player of the year.
And I think he thinks he could really compete and get the starting job. And like I said, there's not a lot of separation right now between the other 2 and him. Mm-hmm. And so, if he comes out and have a phenomenal spring, we could have a very, very interesting summer coming up because where there could be a possibility that a true freshman is going to take the reins of this team.
And None of the players are undersized. So it's not like, you got your like Tate Martell coming in that this guy never lost a game, but he's only 5'10" or something like that, that you have, legitimate worries that he's not big enough to play at a higher level. Like they're all pro-sized quarterbacks. Like they're all, that prototypical 6'2" to 6'4" range.
Yeah.
I mean, they all watch their tapes. They all have arm talent. They all can move. They're all just legitimate quarterbacks. And I can't remember if you haven't seen it, CJ Stroud, the one camp that he's at, and I can't remember what's the big ones? The opening
is the big one, and then there's the Elite 11.
It's one of those. It's the finals that he wins. He's the last quarterback to go. I think it's every single throw that he hits a guy either in the hands or at the eyes. Like it was just so impressive.
Yeah,
just the arm talent and the accuracy that he was displaying.
That's the one thing another thing I really didn't disliked about last season, and I understood it. And I've always, again, I go back to the thing. Yeah, I was glad they played the season. I would not be wanting to talk about, these guys playing right now. And,
I know.
And so, I was glad. I mean, they played for a national title, and that's what I wanted them. I wanted them to be able to. You want to play with the other teams because you want to compete for the national title, and they made it to the national title. So
if we got a spring 7-on-7 league on top of a normal fall league, now that's something to talk about. Hey, that would be cool.
I would take that.
Yeah.
Colleges, let's get this going. So like
trademark that.
Yeah. So they but just what sucked about last year is normally in a normal year, and it's weird because we now have kind of had 2 years in a row like this, because you had backups because of transfers and stuff. The backups to Justin Fields his first year, you knew those guys weren't going to be, a future of the program. And so
that was just to get depth on your team.
Yeah. And like most years you get there's somebody on that's like, you think about years when Dwayne gets in, then you get those, and sometimes some of them get crazy, but then you can have those interesting discussions. Like, should Dwayne be starting over JT? And so like, we haven't gotten any of that. And it's fun to be competing for national titles, but it's also fun to see what the future brings.
Yeah.
And, and I wish we would have got to see Miller and Stroud throw it a little bit more, but there was just a lot of, and then you had the cancellations, and there was just a lot against them last year. And, so they couldn't play, and
hopefully you never see a season like that again.
Yeah, exactly. So, anything else you want to talk about spring? I know we'll be, as the weeks now go on, now we're going to get more into spring over the next several weeks, the spring things, but,
no, I mean, because we're just right at the beginning of it right now. So, I mean, good luck to everyone in their mat drills and dealing with Mickey. I know those can be intense from what I hear.
I think next week we'll do running backs.
You want to talk running backs next week?
Because I think that's the other position that I'm really interested to see, because receivers, when you got now Olave back and Wilson's back, I think there's the receivers. It's going to be interesting.
I do think number 3 is up for debate, though, and I think we could have a good conversation about who your third starter is at receiver.
I think that I actually agree with that too, because you think about I know Cooper left, but now you still got 3 kids from the year before, and now you're bringing in 3 more studs. So, I mean, the receiving room is interesting, but who your top 2 are.
Right. But you got 2 number 1 receivers in respective classes that right now they're projected to still be on the bench next year. And I'm not sure if that's actually how it shakes out or not.
Yeah, I agree with that. So that will be an interesting talk. Maybe in 2 weeks we'll hit that one up, the receivers. But I really want to think about running backs, because I think that's the other spot where I don't know if necessarily the players coming back are going to be able to hold off freshmen. And, we could see a true freshman starting running back here. And, it'd be interesting to talk about that.
But on February 27th, 2021, you and I are in agreement that as of this moment right now, we believe first snap of the season goes to CJ Stroud.
I would say that. Obviously things could change, but as of today, I think he probably has the edge. Okay. I just don't think it's as big as an edge as some people are saying, that it's his job to lose. Like
he's not Justin Fields coming back in that, something catastrophic has to happen for him not to be the starter next year.
If McCord and Miller, if one of them have a phenomenal spring and maybe Stroud has a so-so spring, I might say that coming out of spring, I might be saying that they are they could be the starter.
Well, and I don't think he's in that position that he has to do, so much worse than them for them to jump him. Like you said, I don't think it's his job to lose. Like, I think the job is up in the air for anybody to win at this point.
Yeah.
I think whoever looks the best.
He's the leader in the pack, but he might be the first horse out of the gate, but it doesn't mean
that he's finishing number one.
Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. It's just interesting. And I think the running back position will be interesting too. I'm looking forward to talking about that one.
I sent you the picture yesterday of the team huddle, probably after practice. Might have been before though, but the three of them were all right next to Day. And I mean, I kind of thought it was cool, made a big deal out of it, but Day's not letting, with his football team, he's not letting any of them out of his reach. Corey Dennis is just there for looks this year. Ryan Day is going to make sure that he's ready to pass those guys off to Corey Dennis.
I mean, that's when I saw the picture, I was just thinking back when back in high school and stuff, and when everybody, it doesn't, whether you're trying to show off for a teacher or show off for a coach or whatever, they're all up front and they all got their heads
they're
up.
Trying to sneak in to be the front in line there. Yeah. No, I that's funny, but I think what it is Ryan Day, he's attached to all those guys until it's Corey Dennis's turn with them.
Yeah. So,
he's not letting them out of his grip.
Yeah. So that was all right. I think that was pretty good show to end on. Yeah. And so we'll get more into, we'll talk basketball, we'll talk some more spring next week, and maybe we'll come up with another fun segment. We'll mix and throw in some of the fun segments like we did last week. And there we've been talking about a couple different ones, so maybe we'll throw out another one next week. All right, so we'll sign off now.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for stopping in today at the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
O-H-I-O.
Well, thank you for watching here, the Buckeye Bar Guys, here on the Buckeye Bar Talk Network. Please subscribe to the network, and when you get the little notification bell, just hit that. Hit all notifications. That way you will get alerted when all the new episodes come up. Comment, like the show, and we hope to... You join our community. Come join our bar.
Like, comment, share. I'm John. That's Mike. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.